I think a new team has arrived in the AFC West, and their name is the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah.
Herbert stops, launches deep. Jalen Guyton, he's got it!
Herbert fires open, making the grab. Mike Williams down the sideline. 17-yard line, look out again.
Carr, intercepted!
And we're back with another episode of the Shock Therapy Podcast brought to you by the Say It Again Network. I'm your host, Tyler Lawrence. With me is my co-host, Zach Alfers. And man, what a rough game for the Chargers on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely brutal. And I know the season's not over, but it just kind of seems yet again it's the Raiders who kind of have ended our postseason chances. I know we have 5 games left, but with Dolphins next week, Titans right after that, it just seems like a big uphill to climb. And it's so demoralizing because we had so many chances on Sunday to do what we needed to do, win a must-win game, kind of just let it fizzle out. Congrats, hats off to the Raiders because they just made more clutch plays in key situations than we did. And it's kind of just what has kind of plagued this Charger team all year. It's the inconsistencies. Coming out red hot, having a completely mediocre second and third quarter, just inconsistent from play to play, drive to drive, within the game. It was just inconsistent across the board, and it's such a heartbreaker to watch this team with so much potential, even with the injuries, to let it kind of fizzle out the way it did. Just super frustrating.
I love how you kind of already has been like, Raiders ending the Chargers playoff hopes, because it really feels like the Houston game last year. Like we weren't out of it. I mean, no. I think we still need to go 4-1. We can lose one more game this season and still pretty easily make a push to the playoffs. But this feels like that game that Houston game last year, where it's a game that we shouldn't lose. We should blow them out. And it's going to, if we don't make playoffs and it's going to be down to the wire, everybody's going to look back at the Raiders game. Just like, last season, everybody looked back at that Texans game. So a really bad similarity there especially when you're going to go see the Dolphins and Titans here in back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, tough matchups. And I mean, and I'm one of the most optimistic, I think, fans out there. But it's just one of those, the little momentum that we did have coming into this week just seems completely deflated. There's a team that's completely demoralized, and it just takes a snap of the finger to get, that fire back. But it just seems like in this Raider game, it was just a little late. I mean, we were streaking back. It seemed like we had some momentum, but just we dug ourselves too big of a hole to climb out of. And that's kind of where I feel like where we are at with the season. It's just too big of a hill to climb, especially you got the Titans and Dolphins in back-to-back weeks. You need to win one of those. That just seems, especially with the injuries, especially the way this team has been playing in recent weeks, it just seems too much, too late. And it's a bummer because I had such high expectations for this team this season.
Yeah, it just feels like it's over though, right? Like that's the hard part. It just feels like we've lost all the momentum. Asking a team that is 6-6 to go 4-1 to close out the season, that doesn't seem likely at all.
No, even going back to last week, going 4-2 over the last 6 games, that seemed like a tall task, but doable given the breakup in between. Well, starting with the Raiders and then those last 4 games, super winnable. But when you're dropping games that you shouldn't, and it's something that's happened all year, playing up to teams and then playing down to teams, when you're having an execution error or execution problem like the Chargers have, having a consistency problem like the Chargers have, it's just really unrealistic to think that, well, maybe just the last 5 games they'll be consistent, they'll put it all together. It's just not happening. I feel like we've given this team so many chances, and it's deflating to say, but I think the season is over. Hopefully they surprise me, and it's something that this team likes to do. As soon as you feel like you're too, have a foot out the door, they pull you back in. And there's a lot to be excited about for the future of this team, but I just don't see it. Even if we do kind of limp our way into the playoffs, I just don't see this team built and constructed the way it is, missing the pieces we are missing, that we'd be competitive in the playoffs. It's tough. It's tough. It really is.
I've been looking for this meme I saw a couple times today, and I can't find it, but it was something about watching Justin Herbert will his team to a win without any offensive line, any receivers. And then he goes, kind of, what player does that remind you of? And then the picture right next to him is Phillip Rivers over the past 10 years. Yeah. Justin Herbert, like, man, you get, like, he was pressured every drop back, it seemed like. He dropped back 47 times, completed 28 passes, 335 yards, quarterback rating 15.2. He's just really, really struggled to just have some sort of space to let the ball fly, let it go. And it's really, really hard to drop back, especially when you know that Chandler Jones is coming at you. 11 total pressures. Max Crosby, 8 total pressures. This team, like Jerry Tillery, who had 6 pressures this game, was almost the same number of pressures he had all season with us. I can't even count the number. 37 pressures on 47 dropbacks, 48 dropbacks. Yeah. What are we doing? Like, we can't win a game like that. And we still managed to make it a 1-point game at the end there.
There's plenty of chances. It was just one of those things that, especially the O-line, just outclassed, and asking somebody who is amazing in Justin Herbert to just be extra amazing. And the fact that we were still had chances to win this game kind of just speaks to Justin Herbert's greatness. And if we could get this dude some help, especially up front, I know we're missing our 3 best players on the line. It just seems like if we can get this guy some protection, get him another option or 2 to throw the ball to, he's going to be dynamite. It's just a matter of time. It's just finding the right pieces, making sure they fit. And at this point in his career, it's unfortunate because I feel like we are letting a generational talent kind of slip through the fingertips here. So maybe just another disappointing season will kind of just inspire a hot off season and just a revamp of the focus this team is going. But right now it's super demoralizing to watch week in and week out when you have a guy like Justin Herbert. You know he's going to ball out, but him being excellent just isn't enough. We need some other people helping him out, and he just did not get any help this past week.
I gotta ask you, because it's being talked about quite a bit. Where are you on the replace Brandon Staley train? I know you're on the train somewhere. Are you the what's the name of the train operator?
Acho.
What are you over there driving the train, or are you sitting at the back waiting to see if you can get off?
Yeah, I'm not driving the train.
No.
I'm not driving the train. I don't even think I don't know where you'd put me on the train. I don't even know if I'm on that train, because I really don't think switching a head coach at this point really
not right now, but after this season
for next season.
Are you there yet?
No, not even, and because I don't think changing leadership, changing head coaches turns the needle for us. And what we need is just better execution, and that's going to come when you have your best players out there. I feel like it's very hard to say, oh, this is Brandon Staley's fault when he hasn't had the guys that he went out and spent all off season to acquire there for most of the game. Now, I want to see, I really like the progress that he's made, going from the worst special teams of all time to having one of the best units in the league right now. I think that's coaching. I think guys are in place to make plays. Like Asante Samuel Jr. was in place to make plays, or in place to make plays. Davante Adams just kind of outdid him. But you think about it, like J.C. Jackson was supposed to be the guy in that situation. And so I don't know. I think it's too.
It's
I
hard
don't
to
think it's
grade
Brandon
him
Staley's
with.
fault.
It's hard to grade him with all the issues that have been plaguing the team. And part of the job of a head coach is being able to manage that.
Right.
But there's a lot of things that I went and took a step back, and I really just evaluated Brandon Staley with what he's had out in front of him.
Yeah.
He made the tough decision to fire the special teams coach last season, right? Who he also like improved the special teams unit from a year ago, but it still didn't meet the standard that Brandon Staley wanted. And he ended up upgrading that unit again this season, and it is 10 times better than it was. You look across the defensive side of the ball, being a head coach who can recruit good football players to the team, that's a huge deal. Being a guy who can help Tom Telesco be a little more aggressive in free agency through trades, all those types of things, that's a really good thing to have.
Yeah.
And then you look at the fact of the culture at the team. Like the team still seems bought in, even with some of the questionable decisions Brandon Staley has made over the last 2 years. It feels and it looks different. This is a team that is bought in. There's a lot of leaders on this team. Also, big shout out to Derwin James being nominated as Walter Payton Man of the Year. We'll get to that here in a bit. But then you look at the issues and how has he managed some of the issues. You look at the shuffling of the offensive line. You look at the defense and him being able to change the scheme to change the players to go and fit his scheme. And he had the full opportunity to do that. And we were expecting a much, much better defense, especially in the run defense department. And it hasn't materialized.
Yeah.
We looked at the potential of him going and getting a speedy wide receiver. Some of this falls on Tom Telesco, and just not being able to replicate that, having issues over the play calling, especially with no Keenan Allen. He's had a lot of injuries.
Yeah. And
then you got to take a look at some of the decision-making in game, some of the fourth down decisions, some of the there's a lot of good and a lot of bad. And I think that it's still a little too early to go and fire him. I think you need to let him learn from his mistakes. But I mean, how long is this leash right now? Maybe a full season longer, and then you've got 3 seasons to look back and evaluate where the team is at. But I just don't think we are ready to fire him right now.
No, especially because of the good. The good is so promising. Being able, with no Brandon Staley, you don't have Khalil Mack. You don't have J.C. Jackson wearing powder blue. So that for one is all on Staley's shoulders, and credit to him for being able to get people like that in the house. Bryce Callahan, all these guys are coming to play for Staley. At the end of the day, Staley is a very young, inexperienced head coach. Not everybody is a Hall of Famer right off the gate. It takes some time, and I get it. It is frustrating to watch, but I think he needs at least 1 year, in my opinion, another second full offseason to get his guys in place, to reiterate what it is he's expecting from his scheme. And to me, the biggest problem right now with this Charger team is inconsistency. Switching a head coach this offseason doesn't help that consistency issue, because then you're getting a new playbook, a brand new scheme to see, and that I think just kind of adds to what is plaguing us right now. And so I think I'll give him 1 year. I'm close to hopping on that train, but I'm not there yet because he is so young, and because of the good has so much potential for the future of this team. I just can't step all the way out yet. I'm getting close, but I really think he needs 1 more year to prove it with a healthy team. If he can't get into the playoffs with this roster healthy, then of course it's a leadership issue. But I just don't believe that. I think it's very hard. There's very, very few coaches I think that could coach this particular team into the playoffs, given the injuries that have just been stacking up, and it's every game. Even in this game,
the top 100 players, it's like all of them have been out for at least portions of this season.
Well, yeah, it's brutal. Any Belichick, Belichick, Andy Reid, any of the greats all time would have trouble dealing with what Staley's dealing with right now. And I'm not making any excuses. I think he believes that he should be better. I think this team believes they should be better. But still, you can't just.
There's still a lot of time left, and he's
sure.
This is something new that he hasn't had to deal with, these injuries, right? Like last season, we were really, really healthy throughout most of the season. That was huge, and it was a big reason why we're able to be so effective, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But when you're missing 3 of your 5 starting offensive linemen, you also lost Zion for a few series there, and then Keenan Allen is still getting back in the groove. Josh Palmer became wide receiver 1, and now we're running out Michael Bandy and Jason Moore as your top wide receiving threats. And then you have no run game. Like, that's a really, really difficult situation to try to just fix. It's not something you can fix during the season. But I will say, I don't think that this team is good enough to make the playoffs. Even if we were to get Mike Williams back, even if we're getting Rashawn Slater back, Corey Lindsey gets healthy, even if you get some of those pieces back on the offensive side of the ball, I still just don't think that our identity on offense and our ability matches that of a playoff team, especially when you haven't gotten very much better against the run from this last season. So I just don't feel like this team's good enough right now. They're not good enough right now.
They're not good enough. No, they're not good enough, especially with how stacked the AFC playoff picture is looking, especially when you consider that most of those teams that are going into the playoffs in our conference are teams who have very effective run games. It's something I don't think we could stop. And I mean, we gave up 5.3 yards a carry, 144 yards to Josh Jacobs, who's an absolute beast. But it's the consistency issue. I thought we played a phenomenal first quarter. Only had 7 points after 2 takeaways, and that 7 points was a defensive touchdown. So it's just the inconsistencies. If our defense shows up, our offense isn't showing up. And when our offense is showing up, either the defense or the special teams has a lapse. And so it's just we're not playing on the same. We're not on the same page. You look at the fact that Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen have had this terrific type of chemistry in the first 2 seasons that Justin Herbert was playing. This game targets Keenan Allen 14 times, and Keenan only had 6 receptions. So
that has to do with the protection, though, being able to get the ball out in rhythm on time.
Absolutely, but even last year we had a significant, not healthy. The line wasn't as great, but still, they were still on a bit. It seemed like on the page more often than not, and I get the pressure. Like the pressure was, he had 2. Justin had consistently about 2 to 3 seconds a drop back. So I get that that's a factor into it, but it just, I think, speaks to the fact that across the board, this team is not on the same page. And it's just, it's hard to win games when you guys aren't speaking the same language.
And then the turnovers, Justin Herbert fumbled twice, ended up getting both of them back. Austin Eckler had the fumble there. You had the interception. I mean, it was a really, really rough game overall. And it started off in the Chargers' favor. I mean, we get that Josh Jacobs fumble recovery. Mm-hmm. That was huge. But it's really hard to win when the opposing team is getting 150 yards rushing and 250 yards receiving. You're letting teams go and be super, super balanced in terms of beating you in whichever way they want to beat you, whether it be on the ground or through the air. We really struggled to get pressure on Derek Carr. Joey Bosa, who knows how close he is to coming back. But since Joey Bosa came out, our ability to consistently get pressure just been pretty non-existent. From the interior, it's not been good. And then off the edges, I mean, if you're not Khalil Mack, you're not getting to the quarterback on this team.
And
also,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm just saying we were so close. We were so close. You saw the every drop back that Carr had, the pocket was collapsing, just not fast enough, and there was no fear in Derek Carr. If you get to him early, once that pocket starts to collapse, he kind of expedites his process and goes into, covering up to protect the ball a little sooner. There was no fear in Derek Carr's eyes when he was dropping back this game because he knew that he had a good 5 seconds every time he threw the ball. And he had barely a 50% completion rate. 30 attempts, 16 completions. 8 of those.
Where did most of those go?
8 of those went to Davante Adams.
For how many yards?
177 yards for Davante. The next highest receiver had 5 receptions, Matt Collins, at 35 total yards. Foster Moreau had 1 catch for 32 yards. Josh Jacobs had 2 for 6. That's it. That's the only completions Derek Carr made all game. So and we couldn't stop it. We knew it was happening. We knew it was coming. We couldn't stop it, whether it be Davante Adams or Josh Jacobs. When it mattered, the Raiders executed better, and that's why they won this football game.
Sante Samuel did not play very well in coverage against.
Tough game.
He had a really, really tough game, Drew. A tough matchup against Davante Adams, and Adams won the first matchup, but he won way easier in the second matchup.
Yeah.
Chargers struggled to get pressure, like I said. Morgan Fox, Khalil Mack both had 4 pressures each. The Morgan Fox, Sebastian Joseph Day, and Joe Gaziano actually got hits on the quarterback. I haven't heard about Sebastian Joseph Day's injury. Have you had a chance to hear or see anything about that?
I haven't heard or seen anything. I'm hoping it's not something super serious, but that's another just super frustrating part about this season. All the money that we put into that defensive line, I think it was like $75 million total between all of those D linemen, and one of them's been playing all year. Sebastian Joseph Day goes down in this latest game, and it's just adding to the pain that it is to be a Charger fan. Just watching your guys go out week in, week out, it's so sad to watch. And I feel so bad. I don't know much about his injury. It was just like one of those things that I kind of had to look away from the TV because it just hurt me so. It hurt so much.
It was tough. It was really hard to watch. Any closing remarks?
No. Gotta do better. Gotta execute better. I think everyone wants to put this on the coaching staff. Guys were in positions to make plays. We just didn't. And that's the frustrating part. It feels like we really did let one just slip through our hands. It was totally winnable. I love the effort and the energy we came out with that game. In that game, watching guys go down with injuries, watching guys, not capitalize when you do have chances. The NFL is such a tough league to play in, and you only get 1 or 2 opportunities a game. And when you're not executing consistently, it's super frustrating to watch.
It looks like Amik Robertson was matched up against Keenan Allen for most of the game, and 7 targets for Keenan Allen, while Amik Robertson was covering him. 3 went for receptions for 59 yards. The big one being the dime Justin Herbert threw into the end zone.
Yeah.
Amik Robertson is not on the same level as Keenan Allen, but they were definitely shading coverage over to Allen's way. And 14 targets later, Keenan Allen, outside that 1 touchdown, was pretty ineffective for most of the game. And this is after he had that barbecue chicken comment. They took Keenan out the game completely for it, and it showed.
I think without that 35-yard bomb, which was an absolute prayer, and it was good improvisation from Keenan. But without that one play, he was at five receptions for 53 yards. That is bottled up as you can get for Keenan Allen. especially with
one of the
his
last things I
comments.
did want to bring up. I think Stone Smart needs to get some more snaps on this offense. I really like what I've seen out of Stone Smart as a blocker, as a receiver. Hasn't been getting any deep shots or anything like that, but he's been a very reliable, undrafted, unknown player who the Chargers seem to think enough of him to put him on IR to return. As soon as he returns, he's immediately getting some starting time when given kind of being the primary player to give Gerald Everett some breaks over Trey McKitty, who's our 3rd-round draft pick. I have no idea what's going on with our other tight end, Donald Parham Jr. Donald Parham.
Yeah.
Jesus. So I am looking forward to seeing him get some more snaps because he's looked really good so far. But I think that's the end of this episode. We'll circle back here in a minute and we'll do the Dolphins preview. It should not be any fun to talk about.
No.